listening to the Sermon Podcast of Brockport First Baptist. We are a progressive American Baptist congregation located about 20 minutes outside of Rochester, New York. To learn more about our church and support our ministries, please visit brockportfirstbaptist.org.
It is Genesis chapter 32, beginning with verse 3. And it can be found on page 26 of your Pew Bibles. Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have lived with Laban as an alien and stayed until now, and I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male and female slaves, and I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 companies, thinking, "If Esau comes to the one company and destroys it, then the company that is left will escape." And Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your kindred, and I will do you good,' I am not worthy of the least of all the steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I am afraid of him. He may come and kill us all, the mothers with the children. Yet you have said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted because of their number." The same night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and likewise everything that he had. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please, tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. And thank you, Julie, for that reading. So before we get into this story, I want to give a big thanks to Chris O'Brien for filling the pulpit last Sunday. He's not here, but let's clap for him anyway. Chris really is a great guy. He's one of my oldest friends, and he preached a wonderful sermon last week about forgiveness and God's faithfulness. If you weren't here to hear it in person, seriously, treat yourself by going on the church website and giving it a listen, because it was excellent. So this is the story where God and Jacob beat the crap out of each other, basically. It's a weird one, you guys. This is a strange story. It is a text full of mystery. The kind of passage that comes to life as you read it and reread it and ponder it and meditate over it and reflect on it. It's a story that, ironically enough, opens up for us the more we wrestle with it. But it's weird. It's especially weird if, like me, you grew up watching pro wrestling. Are there any pro wrestling fans in here, other than Christian and I? You can be honest. It's a safe space. We got a few. Excellent. It's weird enough, right, to think about like Jacob and God grappling with each other as depicted on the front of the bulletins. But when I hear the word wrestle, my mind goes to something more like this. Just so we're clear, that is Rob Van Dam, one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, kicking a steel chair into someone's face. I'm enjoying it. I don't know which one is God and which one's Jacob in this analogy, but you get the idea. It's wrestling, and it's a weird story. Jacob is finally heading home. At this point, he's been gone for more than 20 years. He ran away as a young man after deceiving his father and stealing the inheritance from his brother. His brother Esau got so angry he wanted to kill him, but it's been 2 decades now. Jacob has been sojourning in the land of Aram, working for his uncle/father-in-law Laban. That arrangement is as messy as it sounds. Thanks to that relationship, Jacob now knows what it feels like to be exploited and deceived, to be taken advantage of. Yet through it all, God has blessed him. So Jacob sends messengers ahead of him to meet his brother Esau. The messengers tell Esau that Jacob's coming home. Your brother is returning, the prodigal son. After 20 years, he's grown wealthy and successful, and he hopes to find favor in your eyes. The messengers return to Jacob, and they inform him, your brother Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men. That's what we'd call an army. This is not good news. Even with all his servants, even with his sons and his daughters, Jacob is no match for an army of that size. They are all going to die. But Jacob's been in situations like this before, twice actually, and so he takes action. Jacob prays. He says this, starting in verse 9, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, and I will do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the steadfast love and the faithfulness that you have shown me, for with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I am afraid of him. He may come and kill us all, the mothers with the children. Yet God, you have said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted because of their number. Do we feel the emotion in Jacob's prayer? He's asking God to remember his promise, to be faithful to the covenant they made more than 20 years ago in this very spot. He's putting his trust in God to do the impossible and deliver him once again. Of course, Jacob is still a con man, and a good con man always has a backup plan. So, we skipped this part of the reading for length. Plus, there's already been a lot of talk about livestock these last few weeks, and I'm allergic. So, but Jacob sends gifts ahead of him to Esau, his brother, very generous gifts. Jacob gives Esau 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewe lambs and 20 rams, 30 camels with their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 30 male donkeys, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. I added the last 3, but you get the idea, right? Like these are lavish gifts, very generous gifts, in the hopes of softening his brother's heart and trying to make amends. The sun begins to set. Jacob leads his family, his wives, his kids, their flocks, herds, and servants. He leads everything he has, everything he values across the river. But then once they're all settled, Jacob goes back to the other side of the river to be alone, knowing he's going to meet Esau in the morning. Imagine what Jacob must have been thinking about. Put yourself in his shoes for just a minute. This unsavory character who has hurt some of the people he loved. This man who's been hurt by others in return. This prodigal son who's been the cause of so much strife in his own family, who now has a family of his own that he loves more than anything, a family that he could very well lose in the morning. This man who has faced trials and tribulations, success and failure, a man who is once again staring his own mortality in the face. These characters we find in the Bible are complicated, but they're also super relatable, yes? Jacob goes across the river to be alone for the night, except that he's not alone. A man shows up. A mysterious figure, shrouded in darkness, wrestles with Jacob until the morning. And the text isn't clear at first about the identity of this man. It could be Esau coming to take his revenge in the night. It could be Laban violating the terms of their agreement, coming to kill Jacob. Is it an angel? Is it a demon? Is it Jacob's own demons he's wrestling with? Is it Jesus? Martin Luther thought it was Jesus, although Martin Luther also thought that farts were demons leaving our body, so grain of salt. And we're talking about the, 15th century reformer, Martin Luther, just to be clear. But Jacob wrestles with this mysterious figure until the morning. Then the sun begins to come up, and it becomes clear that neither man is going to win. They are evenly matched. So this mysterious opponent orders Jacob to release him. Let me go. It's almost morning, and no one can look at my face and survive. But Jacob doesn't release him. He keeps him in that headlock, and he says, "Not until you bless me." So this mysterious opponent asks Jacob his name. He says, "I am Jacob, the heel grabber." Then the man gives him a new name. "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with humans, and you have prevailed." Jacob is renamed Israel, which literally means God wrestler. It is a pretty hardcore name. He could have been a pro wrestler. I stand by that. Jacob then asks this stranger for his name, but he won't give it. Instead, he blesses Jacob and then he's gone, but not before striking Jacob on the hip, knocking his leg out of joint, and leaving him with a limp that will plague him for the rest of his life. Jacob calls the place Peniel. Let me hear you all say Peniel. Peniel means face of God. He calls the place Peniel, saying, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life is preserved." It's a weird story, right? Before we apply it, though, I need to address this little hip issue. This is going to be fun. God strikes Jacob on the hip. And for anyone who's listening to this recording later on the audio, I'm putting hip in scare quotes. If you know Hebrew at all, or if you've been part of this church for a couple of years and heard me make this point in previous sermons, you should know about an old Hebrew euphemism that is probably one of my favorites. Ancient Hebrew only had 2 or 3 words that could refer to anything below the belt. And these words are interchangeable. You can translate them hip, thigh, leg, knee, heel, ankle, groin. A few of you know where this is going and are rolling your eyes already. A few years ago, during Advent, we studied the book of Ruth together. Was anyone here for the Ruth series? A few of us? Awesome. There's this story in the book of Ruth, maybe you'll remember, where Ruth approaches Boaz in the middle of the night when he's on the threshing room floor. Boaz is passed out drunk after a long day of heavy labor that was followed by partying and drinking. And Ruth snuggles up next to Boaz, and she uncovers his feet. And then Boaz wakes up. Are we remembering this story? Yeah, a few of us are. Boaz wakes up and sees what Ruth has done, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, what a wonderful thing you have done for me. You, a beautiful young woman, and me, an old man, but you uncovered my feet." And then Ruth's pregnant in the next chapter. It's not his feet, guys. It's a euphemism. Same deal in this story, where Jacob wrestles with God, and God strikes him on the hip. The precise body part is flexible there. God might have hit Jacob on the hip. That is certainly possible. That is the traditional reading. Personally, I prefer the interpretation that God punched Jacob in the balls. I don't know if you're anything like me. I know I have a sick sense of humor, but seriously, as I read these stories in Genesis about these unsavory characters like Jacob and Abraham and Laban, on more than one occasion, I have found myself reading this thinking, why doesn't someone punch one of these guys in the balls, right? And then God shows up, and it's like crotch shot. Like it's the Bible is wonderful, you guys. It's perfect. Another interpretation, a very interesting take, is that God strikes Jacob on the heel, which would be interesting. Remember that Jacob's name means heel grabber, usurper, leg puller, someone who trips other people up by grabbing them at the heel. There's a certain irony in the idea of God hitting Jacob in the heel so hard he has a limp for the rest of his life. Whatever the case, whether it's the hip or the heel or the groin, God gives Jacob a low blow. God hits Jacob below the belt, ensuring that this con man will never be able to strut or swagger again. This is a really rich story for interpretation. We could do a lot with this. Let's pull out just a couple things as we wrestle with this. First point I'd like us to ponder is the surprising and mysterious nature of God. The surprising and mysterious nature of God. This is no ordinary God. The God of the Bible cannot be classified, quantified, summarized, or put in a box. This God is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside of an enigma. Yes? There is no mastering God. You don't tame God by understanding God. Just when you think you've got God figured out, God surprises you. Occasionally I'll meet someone who, once they find out I'm a pastor, they'll say something like, oh yeah, me and God have an understanding, right? The Lord and I are good. Have you heard things like this before? I'm always struck by that phrase. It usually just means they don't go to church, but I'm always struck by the phrase, me and God are good, me and God have an understanding. It's like, that's interesting. Can you let me in on that? Because I don't feel like I understand God at all. And I get paid to study this stuff. I've been reading the Bible and studying theology for 30 years, and it feels like the more I learn, the less I know. I am continually surprised by this God. I don't understand God at all. This is another way to say, number two, that God is a person. God is a person. God is not just an abstract, disembodied force. The God of the Bible is a person with a complex personality, like anyone we meet in life. There is no end to the depths of the mysteries of this God. I've been married to my wife Erin for 15 years now. I am still trying to figure her out. And she me, right? What's that? Forevermore, right? Because there's no limit. There's no end to the ways that another person, another being, can surprise us, mystify us, challenge us, and delight us. People are mysterious, and God is a person. Be really careful if you encounter someone who thinks they know God, that they can speak for God or sum God up in a word or a phrase or a doctrine. The God who wrestles Jacob by the river is not the distant God of the deists who made the world and then walked away. God is not a cosmic clockmaker who designed the universe to run on its own without God's managing and intervention. This God is not disinterested or distant, but passionate and close, sometimes uncomfortably close. This is not the vengeful God of the fundamentalists who threatens to smite us if we break the slightest rule. Nor is it the God, the sort of wishy-washy, lovey-dovey God of so much of liberal Christianity who just wants to snuggle with us and never calls us out or challenges us to change. This God stuck with Jacob through thick and thin, blessing him on his good days as well as his bad. This is the same God who sheltered him and protected him when he deserved it and when he didn't. This God shows up to beat the crap out of him by the river, to wrestle with him, to humble him, giving him a new name, a new identity, a blessing, and a limp. You like to wrestle, Jacob? You wrestled your brother, you wrestled your father, you wrestled your uncle. Let's wrestle. Try wrestling me. If that's how you relate to people, let's throw down, because I want to get to know you. This God is a mystery. This God is personal. And this God desires an intimate bodily connection with us. A closeness that goes well beyond navel-gazing and kind of abstract ideas. For most of my life, I've managed to keep God at kind of a safe distance because I don't want God to punch me in the groin, right? I don't want God to force me to change. I don't like being discomforted or disquieted by God. I've always believed in God. I've always had faith, but there is a certain safety that comes when we keep God in the box of faith. When God is just an idea we ascribe to or a doctrine we agree with and not a person who wrestles with us. Someone who encounters us, pushes us, and challenges us. So often when we talk about wrestling with God, it's in this abstract way, this intellectual way, like we're trying to figure God out, trying to iron out every little thing we believe about God. That's not wrestling. True wrestling with God should shake us to our core. It should upset our stomach, force us to face our own mortality. If the reality of God's presence hasn't kept you up at night, pondering, wondering, tossing, and turning, it's possible that what you're wrestling with isn't really God at all, but just an idea of God, an opinion you held that never really applied to God in the first place. This is not the first time God shows up in bodily form in this story. It will not be the last. The God who wrestled with Jacob is the same God who walked with Adam and Eve in the garden. He's the same God who showed up to break bread with Abraham. The God who has journeyed along countless prophets, kings, refugees, and slaves. This is the God who put on flesh in Jesus and dwelled among us. The God who craves closeness with us so badly, he entered into our midst. The God who breaks bread with us, challenges us. The God who in Jesus heals us, sometimes by spitting in some dirt and rubbing the mud in our eyes. That's the God who journeys with us in the wilderness. The God who is there with us through thick and thin. This God knows what it feels like to lose a child, to be that child, to have his own body broken, beaten, and bruised. This is the God who was nailed to that cross back there. The God who died for us, the God who craves an embodied physical presence in our lives. That's the God who welcomes us to this table. You know, I think our friends in the Catholic Church understand a few things we don't sometimes. One of the things I love about Catholicism is that they have an openness to mystery. Baptists, historically speaking, don't really do mystery, yes? We like our faith to be orderly, rational, and reasonable. The bread and the juice on that table, I'll move so you can see them. For us, just bread and juice, right? Just a symbol. Nothing magical happens for us. That would make us uncomfortable. For our Catholic friends, this bread and wine become the literal body and blood of Jesus. It's a beautifully embodied idea. We hear it sometimes and roll our eyes. We laugh at the idea of God taking on flesh and becoming physically present in body and blood. But I think our Catholic friends are onto something. There is an embodied presence of God in our worship. A God who is mysterious, surprising, and way too personal. A God who wrestles with us because God loves us. And I think we need more of that, not less. Journeying with this God is a challenge. It's not for the faint of heart. This God likes to comfort the afflicted, but he also likes to afflict us when we get too comfortable. This God will unsettle us. He will move us. God will challenge us by showing up in surprising ways among surprising people when we least expect it. Grappling with this God will change you. You might take on a new name, a new identity, becoming the person God has been calling you to be all along. Grappling with this God might even leave you with a limp. But the blessings will be beyond your wildest dreams. If you don't know the God that I'm talking about, whether you're new to faith or even if you've been part of a church your entire life, that is the God I'd like to invite us all to encounter here at this table. Amen.